Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. Dr. Christle Guevarra is back, our resident GLP-1 agonist medication expert, Ozempic and everything under that sort of bigger umbrella. And I would love to actually dive into some of the differences because I think a lot of people, certainly the layman, might think of Ozempic as this broad umbrella term that encompasses all of these drugs, when in fact it's simply just one brand name, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's one brand. It's one brand name of semaglutide. And it is the FDA approved version that is specifically for type 2 diabetes. But the main active ingredient is still the same, whether it's Wegovy or Ozempic.
Okay. So we're also hearing about other things. We hear about Tirzepatide. We're hearing about Retatrutide. So we could start with Tirzepatide. Brand
Yeah.
name, I think it's Mounjaro. What is it, and how is it different from Ozempic?
Yeah, a good question. The other the other brand name for it, Zepbound and Mounjaro is approved for type 2 diabetes by the FDA, but really it's not just a GLP-1 agonist, but also is an agonist of a second hormone that is secreted in the gut after you eat meals. I always get it's such a mouthful for the GIP hormone, and it does a couple of different things. I think it has definitely gotten overlooked in comparison to GLP-1 because depending on the context, the environment that is in, it can do a couple of different things. So it really helps with amplifying insulin secretion when glucose is present in the bloodstream. So when you eat a meal and that meal is going down the hatch, going through the stomach and gets, squirted into the intestines, the cells in the intestines are like, hey, there is food coming. We really need to, take these nutrients and utilize it for energy or store it away for a rainy day. So, but depending on the GIP hormone, it is also depending, in a energy surplus, it can also be utilized for fat storage. So I remember seeing that as far as like the 50 million things that this hormone can do. And I was like, oh, well, then why are we even considering this when, fat loss is our main goal or weight loss, so that really, it depends on, the energy deficit, the calorie deficit that we're in. And so when you pair it with a GLP-1, a couple of things, have kind of come about. One is in research, you do get a much greater weight loss response, which is nice. But the other thing too is that, at least notably, people seem to tolerate the medication a lot better because the thing with Ozempic and Wegovy is nausea seems to be the GI side effects seem to be pretty common and severe depending on who is taking the medication. There are some people that I've seen who can't even tolerate the very lowest dose possible, the one that's like not supposed to give you any weight loss benefit. It's just, you spend 4 weeks on this medication just to kind of tolerate it. And there are some people who can't even tolerate like this tiny little blip. So that's where Tirzepatide seems to really come into play. We're like, hey, if this is not working, let's try this and see if you're able to, tolerate the side effects, because we don't want people to just end up nauseous and vomiting all over the place. Like that's not our intent when we prescribe these medications.
Like my poor cat Ozzy last night. So if people are used to seeing my Instagram story, by the time this is aired, this will be a couple weeks old, but he got in some flowers on the counter. I was gifted some flowers, and I suspect that's what made him sick. So here I am. He's crying. He's upset. I am totally side questing here. Sorry.
No, it's
And
all good.
I'm going down the stairs. I've got him in my arms, facing forward because he's starting to urge as if he's going to throw up. Like, uh-oh. Anyway, so I get about 2 steps from the bottom, and all of a sudden, projectile cat vomit. He's up at about my shoulder height. Anyway, somehow, thank God, almost the entirety of it ended up on hardwood floor. It missed my shoes right in front of it, minimally on the carpet, nothing on me. but it did require a vet visit because he'd also been peeing weird a couple days prior. So anyway, the bugger is fine. He's worth it.
Good.
All good. But yeah, not a fun time. Cat vomit.
How old is Ozzy again?
He's 14, so you take
Gosh.
precautions with him, right? But yes,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
he is not on any GLP-1 agonist drugs.
Good.
If anything, the vet said that he's lost a little bit of weight since his last visit. They were concerned about that. Now, back on track.
Yeah.
A quick break from this episode to shout out RP Strength and the RP Hypertrophy app. I have a big confession. I've never used a coach before. I've always auto-regulated my training for decades. But I've known Dr. Mike Israetel and Nick Shaw, the founders of RP, for years, and I'll get behind anything they create, including years of reading their books, consuming their media, attending their seminars, and having them as guests on the show. And I've been using the RP Hypertrophy app now for several months. And several things have happened. It forced me to make smaller and more gradual but better increases in weight volume across time, like putting 5-pound plates on each side of a leg press. Like, who does that? Never before. Only 45s. It cut out the junk volume. It made my workouts faster and more efficient. I show up with a plan. I didn't have to think about what to do. I feel more accountable having a log my progress. And I don't skip things because I don't feel like it. If hiring a one-on-one coach isn't for you, using the RP Hypertrophy app is the next best thing to manage your gains and to take the guesswork out of your program. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free, and if you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. And I've also got you a $50 US dollar discount, so go to rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP, or go to the link below in the show notes. That's rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP. How big is the market for these drugs, and how, if you have the statistics roughly, how many North Americans, or what percentage of the North American population, however you want to translate it, are using these type of drugs, and how much of that volume is currently Ozempic?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I don't know if I necessarily have the answer to that. I was looking at the market, maybe even back in September. And I mean, we're talking about billions, hundreds of billions of dollars that are currently in North America that are now dedicated to this. And you just look at the curve from even 2017 to 2025 and 2026, and it is just skyrocketing up. I mean, these drugs, the market is infinite. I feel like, especially actually, let me backtrack because that actually is mathematically like not sound. It is very high. um,
So is there any sense of, because Ozempic is the one everybody's been talking about, right?
mhm.
And GLP-1 agonist, and now we've got this dual agonist medication, Tirzepatide, which is now out there. Is there a shift towards more people trying and using Tirzepatide? Is there some sense of, okay, here's the percentage of the user base of Ozempic or the other
Mhm.
brand names, Wegovy, and
Mhm.
is it changing?
I get a lot of people asking to like I do get a trend of people saying like the newer thing is the newer thing better
Hmm.
because I would even go so far as to say I feel like Tirzepatide is like already old news where
Hmm.
people are sort of like the Retatrutide is like coming down the pipeline. So everyone's asking about that. I feel like Tirzepatide people had sort of asked maybe about 6 to 8 months ago. People were like, "This is the new thing. Should I be on it?" And my pushback to it is, well, let's take a look at what you're on right now. Are you tolerating it? And let's look at the pros and cons and the risk benefit of like why switching would be better. And sometimes, a lot of times, it's not. You're tolerating the medication, you are maintaining a lifestyle of healthy eating, regular exercise that seems to be working for you. The side effect profile is very low. There's Right now, I'm not entirely convinced that the studies on tirzepatide are with things that are beyond weight loss. Things like, heart attacks, strokes are, worth like having to go through the same kind of ramp up and like trial of like, let's try this new medication just for the sake of trying this new medication. Like, so
So the way you
yeah,
said that,
yeah.
was that these are actual potential risks in worst case scenarios, or is the incidence decreased because of the metabolic health benefits?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, good clarification. The metabolic, especially in semaglutide, the metabolic benefits of decreasing things such as cardiovascular events seem to be independent of weight loss. Because I remember when it first came out, it was like, oh, it's just got to be weight loss. And that's not necessarily the case. There are things that are happening that seem to be independent of the weight loss effect that are beneficial. And we have the strongest amount of data with semaglutide as far as decreased in cardiovascular events go and other benefits. I do know that I want to say that Zepbound tirzepatide has really shown to be beneficial with decreasing fatty liver disease. So that's also a really big benefit too. But if you don't have fatty liver disease, and you're maintaining a very healthy lifestyle and everything else is kosher, is it really necessary to move on to like the hottest new drug just because it's the hottest new drug?
So there's no objective sense that tirzepatide is better than semaglutide.
Yeah, I don't like that statement. And I'm okay
Yeah,
with hanging my head and putting my vote on like, yeah,
good.
I agree. It's
Okay.
always going to be a risk benefit, context dependent, individual discussion.
And I guess the reason why I ask is because if new drugs are coming online and
Yeah.
then people are thinking, well, this one must be better, as you said, sort of the hot new thing,
Yeah.
I need to go and try this thing because the other thing didn't work, or for
Yeah.
God only knows whatever reasons. So it's not as simple as this is better. And then the next thing, which is retatrutide. Can you
Yeah.
tell us what that is? Because as I understand it, that's a triple receptor agonist. So what are triple receptor agonists?
Right. So tirzepatide's dual agonist, right? We talked about GLP-1, we talked about GIP, and then glucagon is the pathway that is involved with energy expenditure and like fat oxidation and thermogenesis. Because when we lose weight, when we diet, for fat loss, a couple of things happen, right? Our people start to realize that their energy levels are decreasing. They don't really feel like moving a whole hell of a lot. That's your body's natural way of saying, like, hey, there's less like calories going on here. I'm losing weight. Like, I am going to do what it takes to slow things down and, you know, preserve every bit of energy that is not coming my way because you are forcibly giving me less energy in the form of calories. And so by sort of tapping into that pathway, you can kind of mitigate, during a fat loss phase or in a calorie deficit, you can keep up that energy expenditure. You can start utilizing fat as an energy source for fat loss. Thing is that you don't want to use it by itself because it also is involved with increasing your liver, creating more glucose. It's involved with liver glucose production. So it wouldn't be wise to just use the glucagon pathway by itself. But if you're using it with in combination with the other two pathways, it seems that people, I would predict, would be able to be in a calorie deficit and not feel so sluggish. And so, as they're kind of dieting down during a fat loss phase.
And this is not yet commercially available, correct? Not yet approved. However, I hear about people using it. So what's going on? It's black
Yeah.
market?
Yeah. And I feel like, bodybuilders and other people in that space have always been sort of at the forefront of
Yep.
trying compounds. And my stance is I won't prescribe, I can't prescribe it because it's not FDA approved or available, but it is always very interesting to hear their perspectives, and I don't take away from anybody's perspective because of the choices that they make. I'm very, I guess, libertarian in that aspect. Like, I can't, force people to change. It's really on them. But people seem to, yeah, people have, it's on the gray market, it is on the black market, I guess, and people have talked about it and people have talked about utilizing it, and people have said some pretty positive things about it in regards to weight loss.
So what is the both that intersection of what it promises to do? You've already talked about it helps with keeping energy expenditure up. What else are we hearing anecdotally, and what is the promise of the research, that intersection, to make it appealing or
For
effective
the
for people
for the
for
Retatrutide,
retatrutide?
less of the GLP-1 solely GLP-1 side effects, and also the reports of people saying that they feel like less cold. They actually feel like, a normal body temperature. Because when you're dieting down, I don't know if you've ever had clients sort of experience this, like I feel a little bit cold or I feel a little bit tired. I can't do, my day-to-day stuff, especially towards the end of a fat loss phase when you're like, okay, let's pull it back and raise your calories and go to maintenance. I feel like people are able to just sort of, coast on lower calories. I would expect it to see people being able to do that for much longer periods of time, because now the whole, metabolic slowdown is not necessarily a problem. So I think that's something to watch out for when these drugs come out on the market and you have a much larger population of people taking it and reporting, their side effects or their experiences about it.
You said when, so that sounded very deterministic. What kind of timetable? Is it an if or is it a when?
Right now they are on phase three. The phase three clinical trials are out. So, we'll see how the next year shakes out as far as those results go. So far, it seems to be on track to being approved, FDA approved. I'm never one to make predictions, just because as somebody who has been in the trenches with scientific research, there's always something that can happen. But if you're going to force me to put money down on it, I'd say it's on track to be FDA approved at some point.
And at least based on your initial, as you understand the data and what you're hearing anecdotally, is it effective? And do you think it's going to, let's use a strong word here, revolutionize fat loss, metabolic health outcomes?
For certain parts of the population, I think it could be. For the general population, I'm not so sure. Just because, yes, these drugs lower the barrier to change, but it doesn't remove the need to address your environment, whether it is your behaviors, whether it's, your support system. And so that's the kind of world I tend to really love being in and thrive in is, yes, these drugs are really important, but also I just don't think having a third pathway is going to make or break it because you still have to do the work. You still have to, it's still going to be work. Just because you have this drug doesn't mean that like everything's roses and sunshine. It
Mm.
just lowers a really important barrier to change.
So do you think though, even with the challenge of that on an individual level day to day,
Mhm.
do you think that just the broad access and certainly the amount of people that are using these medications,
Mhm.
is it going to make an impact, societal level impact on rates of obesity, lifestyle diseases, and we certainly are. I mean, this is more demographic stuff, but we have an aging
Yeah.
population in most of the
Mhm.
world, which means that we're having greater incidences of lifestyle diseases that intersect with, progressively worsening risk as we age. And there's a healthcare burden with that. And then
Mhm.
there's the ever increasing cost of delivering healthcare to a growing rate of aging population. Like there's a lot of complex shit there. But is this the best tool we have? And is it going to make a difference?
Honestly, if I was going to get really excited about a medication out of all of these medications, I'm actually particularly more excited about orforglipron. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. With
I've never heard of it. So do
yeah,
tell. Yeah. So what does
it's
this do?
so this is really awesome because yeah, so yes, it is a just a GLP-1 agonist, just a GLP-1 agonist, but what's cool about it is that it's a non-peptide small molecule. So and it's oral. So a couple of different things. Oral medications are much cheaper to mass produce.
Hmm.
And then two, because it's not a peptide, it's not like a very, oh, excuse me. Yeah, it's not a peptide at all, like these other GLP-1 drugs. Um, the the synthetic pathway, like the way you make this medication, is much cheaper and it has a much higher yield than doing peptide chemistry. So for somebody who is a former synthetic organic chemist, like you have just the way in which these drugs, the peptide chemistry is done is so, it's like easy. It looks easy on paper and is so annoying to do in the lab because you have to protect these groups and then they're water soluble and just all this other BS that just makes it so much more difficult to get from start to finish, like your drug, because you have these extra added steps already baked in with peptide chemistry. So I'm actually really excited to see where this is going to happen because the scalability is where this is headed. And so when we talk, and price is really important. And so that is what I'm super excited about because everybody is talking about the price point of all of these drugs and having to put it into a pen that's injectable or even a vial. Like that has brought down, putting things into a pen versus a vial has brought down the cost of these drugs a bit, but it's still pretty expensive. But now if you have, don't have to do peptide chemistry, you have it in a pill. I'm really excited to see what the price point is for that because that is what is going to get people going because I've had so many people say like, I can't afford this, even with insurance. And I have done the prior auths, sent it off to insurance for them to only tell me, hey, it's still $700 even with insurance. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I submitted how many freaking pieces, PDF files to get this approved. And this is the best you can do with insurance. God, crap.
Is part of this, I mean, the potential rapid consumption of these drugs and the cost that we're getting off course,
Yeah.
but I guess is relevant is, the potential cost to the insurance companies. I mean, either A, it's not profitable for them to deliver on it. People can have their feelings on insurance companies. Like, let's set that aside. It's just, let's just deal with the pragmatics of it.
Yeah.
Or could this then turn around and be, all right, well, we'll just have to raise the premium significantly in order to be able to cover the cost of these drugs?
Yeah. The other thing too is now people are starting to realize like we can circumvent insurance and just do cash. So that's the other thing that like really upsets me is the price transparency is not what it like. There are many times where if you pretend like you don't have insurance and you ask for the cash pay price or the uninsured price, very transparent. They will tell you what it is and it's not a big deal. But once you submit something to insurance, like you're not going to get this output of like what the cost is until you go through all the hoops. And so it becomes a very frustrating thing to navigate. And so some pharmaceutical companies will just are now doing direct to, we don't have to go through insurance. Here's the cash pay price, and we'll just call it a day, and we'll, mail the drug. Like you submit the prescription to the pharmaceutical company, and your patient pays the cash pay price, and the pharmaceutical company will just mail the drug directly to the patient, and we'll just have a day and take care. I'm not really all that familiar with how insurances work, like all the ins and outs of that, but it is as a primary care physician, a very frustrating experience. And, I try and do my best to see to see if it's covered with insurance. But even then, sometimes you do have to go to the cash pay price. I've had people do that, or even at some points, especially during the drug shortages in 2022 or 2023, I've seen people have to turn to the gray market just because there's nothing around, things are too expensive. And I feel terrible because I can see where people would, be stuck between a rock and a hard place of like, we don't have this drug at all. What am I going to do next? This is very important to, my livelihood. I have food noise. So
This episode is brought to you by Just Bite Me Meals. I work long days and I won't compromise my client experience or sacrifice my workout, sleep, or nutrition. So I needed a quality and reliable meal prep service so I could save time on cooking and shopping and have more time for the stuff that matters. Net out the cost of groceries and the service isn't as much as you might think, and regular impulsive food delivery apps, eating out, that costs way more anyway. I get more meal variety and less dishes to clean, and I've been referring clients to Just Bite Me Meals for a long time, and I recently started ordering myself. Food is great. The beef brisket tacos are my favorite so far. And there's a lot of menu choice. Your calories and macros are listed. The portions are great. You can order custom meals. They deliver to your door, or you can pick up from their storefront. And I'm sorry to listeners outside of Alberta, but Just Bite Me Meals is currently just in Edmonton, Calgary, Grand Prairie, and Fort McMurray. Ordering from Just Bite Me Meals made my life easier instantly. And you can get 10% off on all your orders using my code, Andrew Coates Fitness, all caps, on their website. That's Andrew Coates Fitness, all capitals, or go to the link and the code in the show notes.
What kind of timeline do these companies have? I guess, what is it? I don't know if the language is patent or proprietary rights to it before it expires for the different drugs before generic drugs can hit the market, because they've been around for a while, right?
Yeah, they have been so Wegovy, Ozempic came out in 2017, I believe. And so usually I want to say they have a 10 to 15 year runway before the generic runs out, or that's just the timeline of start to finish from, drug discovery to FDA approval. Like it is not, they did not just pop out of nowhere. People have been, studying, doing research for years on end before all of this came about. So yeah, I'm not sure when the generic runs out or the patent runs out. It's usually a couple of years, at least a couple of years, because they really want to make sure that they get their money back, so to speak, because research isn't cheap, not by any means. And then you have all the animals that you have to first, test on before you can go to human trials, and that also costs money as well.
I know that a lot of people have very negative big pharma narratives, and I mean, we know that big pharmaceutical companies have a serious track record of being litigated successfully for dubious shit. That does not
Yeah.
mean that they haven't created a massive array of life-saving drugs. I mean,
Yeah.
insulin being kind of one of the old school ones. There's so
Yeah.
many other ones, right?
Yeah.
And I know it sometimes becomes a socio-political thing, but setting all that sort of stuff aside,
Yeah.
if there's no profit potential in these medications, we would not have anywhere near the same scale of research and development to find things like this, correct?
Yeah, the scientists cost money. Like they also need, where is that money going to come from? Um, and the actual testing kits cost money. The animals are particularly bred for scientific research. Like they don't
Mm.
just, you don't just grab rats from, the subway in New York. You have them shipped. They are germ free. And that
Mm.
is, I used to work in my first job in science was in an animal lab. So
Mm.
got very familiar with all of that. So
And I know that people also have their moral stuff about
yeah,
that too. None of
yeah.
this stuff is clean, black and white. Um, should people be using these type of medications as a long-term solution, the same way we use blood pressure medication, statins? Do what you like with that thought.
Yeah, I think it's always a it's always an ongoing discussion. So for some people there are people who are able to use this drug as part of their journey, have been able to navigate off of it and still continue to do well for whatever reason. It's not working, or insurance doesn't cover it, or I have some strong feelings about it. There's no wrong way in which, the you know, nobody's forced to use these drugs, but what I always cognizant of is if people feel guilty about using it because they think it's a crutch, I really want to make sure that people stop with that, because you still have to do the work. It's not just I take these drugs and I go live a merry life. It's like, no, I still have to show up to the gym. I still have to cook and feed myself and nourish my body and fuel it. And I still have to take a look at my sleep, my stress levels. So it all becomes an ongoing discussion, even with blood pressure medication and statins. I tell people all the time, you don't have to be on this forever, especially if there are other reasons for high blood pressure. Most commonly, it comes in conjunction with you know, type 2 diabetes, also comes in with having obesity. And so what I tell people is I'm trying to protect you now, but if we change your environment, if we get you to a place where you are exercising regularly, you are not eating fast food all the time, there is a possibility that we can take you off these medications, and that would be awesome. But right now, where we're at, I can't let you walk out of here with a blood pressure of 180 over 110 and like, you're just asking for something bad to happen, and I don't want to be like I couldn't in good faith let you leave this office like that. So yeah, I want people to realize that for a lot of people, especially those who've had struggled with being overweight or obese and having food noise for a very long time in their lives, you may be on this drug forever, and that's okay. It's not a moral failing on your part. Some people just need a little bit of extra help, and that's okay. But for others, there are people who do just fine coming off of the medication. I think it's good to, talk to your doctor and have that discussion and explore why and whether or not it's, a worthwhile thing to consider. Because worst case scenario, the food noise comes back, calories go up, weight goes up, and you just get back on it. And that's okay.
So if someone is finding this episode before your previous episode, we did a big episode on GLP-1, on Ozempic, and you've talked extensively about your own personal journey.
Yeah.
You as a physician have prescribed these medications, but you have also been a patient for these medications. So if I may be so bold, are you
Yeah.
still using them?
Yes, yes, I am. Yes, I am. I still on it. Somebody actually asked me on Instagram today if I am going to stay on it for life. And I am probably of the camp, given how my extensive history with food noise and how I just
Mm-hmm.
like grinded my entire life with it, I would be more in the camp of using it forever. But that's not to say that, things may change moving down the line. I'm of the camp, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I like the things that I'm doing. I lift multiple times a week and, uh, you know, doing all the inner work and stuff like that. So I love my life the way it is, and it's part of my life currently.
I'll get back to my guest in a moment. I have cool news. I will be appearing at the King Kong booth at the Arnold Sports Festival in Columbus, Ohio, March 6th and 7th. And I'm fanatical about King Kong backpacks and duffels. They are the best quality bags. I'm long done with buying a new cheap gym bag every 6 months when the last one falls apart. My biggest problem is needing to pick between my Conquer backpack, my waxed canvas core backpack, my Plus duffel, sorry, it's downstairs, my Heritage leather. This thing is so classic. It looks gorgeous. And my Edge backpack. Sorry, you guys can't even get this one anymore. And I always have one of them with me wherever I go, the gym, work, all my travel. I rarely use traditional suitcases anymore, and the convenience is unmatched. And you can save 15% on all your orders. Go to www.knkg.com/Andrew59676. That's www.knkg.com/Andrew59676. Don't worry, just go to the show notes, the link's in there. And I hope to meet you in person at the King Kong booth at the Arnold Sports Festival.
All right. So again, you mentioned the food noise. We went deep into that last episode. If anybody wants to just message me, I'll dig it out for you. Let's go deeper on what's important for people to actively manage, because you mentioned a couple times, the environment. What do people need to do if they're really serious about, hey, I don't want to be on this medication forever? What's essential?
Yeah. I would say resistance training two times a week minimum, and for a lot of people, that's a good place just to preserve muscle. Because I know everybody's super worried about that. And look, it is a thing. But if you're just taking this medication, not eating, and then just sitting and watching TV, yeah, you're going to lose some muscle. So you need to send that signal to your muscles to be like, hey, we still need this. Like, don't leave us. Also, making sure that you get an adequate amount of calories. A lot of times people will take this drug and just not eat anything, and then we'll have all sorts of complaints that are, things like constipation, things like I feel cold all the time, my weight has stalled, and you realize that like and they're like, I'm tired all the time. Like, yeah, no crap. You're eating like 500 calories. Like if you're being truthful, and that does happen. People forget to eat on this drug and will just, realize that. So you have to be a lot more intentional about your food environment. It's because it is very easy to just forget that food exists if you're not careful enough. So you have to be cognizant of that. So making sure you eat an adequate enough calories, including protein and fiber. And I say that because protein and fiber seem to be a lot more forgotten compared to what's in very tasty, hyper palatable, ultra processed foods, which has a lot of carbs and fats. Um, yeah, eating, I would say that, and making sure you get enough sleep. But I would say the protein, fiber, fueling your body intentionally, and resistance training are like the bare minimum of things that if you're on this drug, that would be it. And then we can build from there. But um,
All right. We're sometimes hearing about, well, influencers talking about nature's Ozempic, although I suspect it might be just as much the coaches complaining about the influencers talking about nature's Ozempic. I mean, this is one of these things in our world where I
yeah.
think half the time we hear about the bat shittery because it's some coach who's turned the bat shittery into content, and it makes it
Mhm.
seem like it's a bigger deal than it is. But all right, so what is the claim behind this? And I mean, I'm not even gonna pretend like there's a thing here, but uh, what would you like to warn people about in case they come up against this?
So I think so is my understanding that there are supplements that you can take or some food combination that you can, I don't know, apple cider vinegar, lemon, water thing that helps promote your own body's ability to produce the GLP-1 hormone, the native GLP-1 hormone, which is nature's Ozempic. So there's a problem with that is you have another enzyme that is produced in your body called DPP4 for short, dipeptidyl peptidase 4. And what that does is it goes in and deactivates your own native GLP-1. So the half-life of your native natural GLP-1 is somewhere on the order of 3 to 5 minutes. So what's the point of producing more when you have this enzyme that you also produce naturally that's like, yeah, no, we're done here. We're just going to, zip and discontinue the activity of this. And so that's why these drugs are so important and special is because they are able to kind of they're shaped differently in such a way that they're able to dodge the DPP4 enzyme. And so the half life is much longer because it stays around in your system for a much longer period of time. So, yeah, I always chuckle when I see Nature's Ozempic and I'm like, have you heard of DPP4? Yo, because it's also powerful and it likes to, kind of shut down the party.
So I'm gonna remember this because I kept thinking of DDP yoga. So if non-wrestling fans, guys, I'm sorry, but uh, Diamond Dallas Page is a fairly famous, former WWE pro wrestler. And anyway, he pivoted over to the fitness industry and helped a lot of other fitness professionals get healthy. So he
Mhm.
popularized DDP yoga, which makes me think I actually should see if I can get him on the
Yeah.
podcast. I've walked past him. I've never met him, but I've walked past him at the Olympia before. So who knows? He seems to be a force for good. But that's just where my mind went. So now
Yeah.
everybody's going to remember that DDP yoga is going to, fuck with nature's Ozempic. Royal Rumble cage match, and it doesn't work. So no one's going to forget that stupid analogy now. All right. This influencers are fantastic for the scaremongering tactics against the GLP-1 agonists and the
Yeah.
similar drugs. Are there any new narratives that are popping up? These kind of people, all of a sudden I'm seeing this more where they're wearing the David Asprey like orange glasses. It's kind of a thing
Oh
now. It's really,
gosh.
I mean, if there is a really, really strong correlation between grifting and a particular presentation, it's going to be wearing those orange glasses. So anyway, enough. Yeah. So is there anything new, scaremongering shit that they're coming up with, new narratives?
I haven't seen too many of it, but also I am in charge of my own algorithm.
Hmm.
And I think the other important thing, and this is also kind of comes along with the journey, is giving people the confidence to be able to make their own decisions and try and stay away from the noise. Like, somebody had asked me recently about, like, all these celebrities are using, Ozempic for weight loss. Like, what do you think about it? And to be honest, I don't think much of it, because people are going to do, I don't think much of it in the sense of, because I am at a place in my life where I can take a look at what somebody else is doing and realize that, like, my energy is just, there are other people who are going to make commentaries about it, and I see where they're coming from, and bless them. But I just, my own, I just don't want to dedicate time to it. They are going to do what they need to do. I am not their physician. I am not, so therefore I am not going to speculate or comment on what it is that they're doing. If they were my patient, then we would have a serious talk, and I wouldn't put it on the internet. I also want that to happen with the people that I work with, is having that sense of confidence in what they're doing, and the skills that they're building and the behavior patterns that they're changing are going to give them the confidence enough to just be okay and just stay in their lane and be, okay with what it is that they're doing, and separating themselves from what everybody else is doing. I hope, does that kind of make sense? I don't know if that's just like a
It,
ramble.
no, I think it's actually really important. It opens the door. So the celebrity side of stuff, which I hadn't sort of queued up, but boy, it's worth noting because, to your point, it's nuanced. I have massively conflicting thoughts, and I think I'll unpack these, and
Hmm.
feel free to share any of
Yeah.
your thoughts. One, to your point, we cannot assume or judge. We should never assume or judge what anybody is doing. Their own personal medical stuff. There's stuff we don't know. Okay, right?
Yeah.
There's no guarantees they're on these medications. We are seeing the media present, and again, media narrative, which
Hmm.
creates sensation and outrage. So, how honest is that
Yep.
narrative? But anecdotally, it does appear as though there are more prominent female celebrities in particular who have lost significant weight, or even ones that were smaller to begin with. And I mean, everybody's got to, their minds are going to go to the girls from Wicked, Ariana Grande, and her
Hmm.
co-star. And I apologize, I
Hmm.
do not know her name. There are some other ones that come to mind that these were not large humans to begin with, and boy, are they looking very, very small now, right?
Hmm.
So it's being presented as if there is this trend in Hollywood
Yeah.
that we're back to the, and again, another name, Kate Moss, who was sort of
Hmm.
a synonymous with
Yeah.
heroin chic back in the
Hmm.
90s,
Hmm.
before Jennifer Lopez and Kim Kardashian and Salma Hayek and all these other wonderful women seem to popularize and make sort of societally normal a more curvy physique.
Hmm.
And so I don't know if, heroin chic is back. I don't know if it's the media spinning this stuff, or again, it's the tabloid fodder to to find a socially acceptable narrative to criticize someone in some way, shape, or form. So unpacking all that's tricky. But I guess I also, I know I'm going on here, but I also do not believe that any individual celebrity is under a personal obligation to be a role model for other people. I think
Hmm.
that's a tricky narrative, but we can't deny the fact that they sort of do.
Hmm.
So, and I don't know where the line is. But again, I'm not willing to judge. I don't think we should. But do you think there is a danger that the way that this is being presented, real or media narrative, might be harmful messaging to, already vulnerable people?
Oh yeah. And it's not, and it's unfortunate that it's the celebrity that gets blamed for it, and not the person who used ChatGPT or AI to write that article and post about it.
Mm,
People forget about that as well. I feel like there is a lot of slop. Watch a bunch of journalists come into my DMs yelling at me. I've seen some just pretty awful takes where they'll just summarize, a YouTube video, and it looks like AI wrote it. So the, and I don't, yes, I would say yes, there is a danger to that. What I really want to emphasize, and where I like to put my energy in, is making sure that I continuously find ways to build people up, instead of
mm.
just ra- feeding into that rage, or that, like, emotional, response, because that's exactly what they want you to do. I think there's power in being able to, yes, Kate Moss was very skinny and in the 90s. I think there's something very powerful to building up enough confidence within yourself to be able to look at those pictures, to look at fashion magazines, and to be confident and strong within yourself that you're like, yeah, I don't look like them and I'm cool with it. I can still appreciate the fashion for what it is, especially 90s fashion. I look at that like my algorithm is a lot of 90s fashion, and it has seeing it now in my 40s and appreciating it for what it is and not having it tear down my sense of self-worth or like my body image or how I feel about myself is a very powerful thing. And I wish I had the answer for how, like, or a pill that could just magically, kind of sprinkle that amongst all women. Because and I don't know necessarily what the pathway is because everybody's different. But I think having conversations and building rapport with the people, clients or patients that you're working with as they're navigating through their weight loss journey about things that are beyond just the weight, things about identity, things about their friend environment, how their family's treating them, boundaries. I think all of that is super important.
And I think within all this too, I think it's very important. There are a lot of people, women and people, who are they're smaller, they're thinner,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think we are quick to judge as a society to look and say, "Ooh, eating disorder,"
Mm-hmm.
when in fact a lot of those women are probably very healthy. There's a genetic component. They probably do not struggle with food noise. Is probably one of the
Mm-hmm.
things. And it's also just not fair to just take a look at them and go, "Hey, oh, you're on Ozempic. Hey, you have an eating disorder as well." So it just boils down to the original point. It's like I just train myself and other people to do not judge based on what you're seeing. I do think we can kind of scan as fitness professionals for societal trends that might
Mm-hmm.
end up influencing people and make their journey a little bit more challenging. But I also think you address that rather well. So,
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I think it's also you start getting a broader perspective. So even like saying things like strong, not skinny, I know people who genetically are meant to be runway models. And I've
mm,
seen them train, and I know some of them actually wanted to really put on muscle, the type of muscle that, for somebody like myself comes a little bit easier. I have jacked arms, took me a couple years. But for them, it's just not going to happen. It's not in the cards, no matter how much they try. And so when I hear things like that, I've seen a spectrum of people of genetic variation. Like some people just aren't built like that, and that's okay. And they're doing their best and doing really awesome. And so, yeah, when I talk to women, I'm like, let's just get strong. Like, let's, be the best version of you, and let's make that happen together.
so you mentioned, and I can't remember the name, this
Yeah.
drug that you're excited about, the
Oh,
GLP-1 agonist.
yeah.
Is there anything else currently being researched? Are there any other drugs in early phase trials that you think are
Yeah.
promising that have potential in the medium term?
I know that is it CagriSema? It's the semaglutide, but cagrilintide, the amylin analog that people have also talked about, that seem to be excited just because it's the phase 3 trial results published and everything seemed to be pretty good. But and that's another one that people are looking at. So amylin analogs, amylin's a different pathway that kind of talks about that kind of helps with not just the food noise, but also helps with like slower eating, smaller portions, earlier satiety. So it hits a different part of the brain, different than the GLP-1 receptors with, food appetite regulation. And so that seems to have a lot of promise as well. You know, I guess I'm just a chemistry nerd, so I'm less excited
Mm,
about that. I'm like, yeah, it's another pathway. You still got to do the work,
mm.
but and I don't know about the scalability of it. I don't know what if it's going to be just as expensive as these other drugs, or forglipron is the one that I'm just like, yeah, let's see how cheap it is. Because people were talking, there's an oral GLP-1 that's available right now, and it's still expensive because it's peptide chemistry. Yes, it's a pill, but you still have to synthesize the active ingredient, and that synthesis still sucks. So,
Is it at least a positive that there may be more options, that if one of these drugs just doesn't seem to work well for someone, they don't tolerate it well, that they have alternatives? Is that one of the
Yeah.
benefits here?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yes, 100% yes. We have, so by hitting these different pathways, yeah, because not everybody is a good candidate for a GLP-1 in the sense of they can't tolerate it, the side effect profile is just too much, and we're just going to stop. So it is nice that tirzepatide exists. It'll be very nice to see that you can hit multiple different pathways to sort of get you going as far as your journey goes. So yeah, it's a good point.
Dr. Christle Guevarra, everybody can find you on Instagram at dr.crystal. What else do you want to
Yes.
send people to? What have you been working on?
So two things. One, I have the free GLP-1 guide. So for anybody starting, just needed a little bit of information, want to hear more about my story. It's very easy to digest, easy to read, nothing too heavy. That is on my profile. And then also, locally, I've been working on an activity book with Coach Brick and his team in is it Northeast Pennsylvania? It's an activity book for kids, K through third grade, where that focuses on healthy habits, healthy nutrition, fueling their bodies, getting active. And so that's really meaningful and awesome. So I'll be happy to send that if, information if anybody's interested.
And if you guys aren't familiar with Coach Brick, Headstrong, uh, he's the puppet, this redheaded puppet. And again, there's still people who are like, "Hey, we haven't seen you and this puppet in the same room at the same time." It's like, I don't know,
Hmm.
uh, right? Except I'm Canadian. And but anyway, it's fantastic. And you've appeared. I was a guest on his podcast quite a while
Yeah.
ago. His YouTube, it's extraordinarily funny. So a lot of our
Oh,
friends have
yeah.
been guests on that. So if you guys want to check that out, please, by all means. If you want the previous episode, the entry level one on Ozempic and GLP-1 agonist medication episode with Crystal, message me or just like scroll back through, just dig through
Yeah.
the archive. There's so much good stuff
Yeah.
there. Thank you. Appreciate you. It's masterclass like always.
Thank you so much for having me.